The Holy Gospel according to John, the 13th chapter.
Glory to you, O Lord.
Now before the festival of the Passover, Jesus knew that his hour had come to depart from this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who are in the world, he loved them to the end. The devil had already put it into the heart of Judas, son of Simon Iscariot, to betray him. And during supper, Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and knowing that he had come from God and was going to God, got up from the table, took off his outer robe, and tied a towel around himself. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with a towel that was tied around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And Jesus answered, "You do not know now what I am doing, but later you will understand." And Peter said to him, "Oh, you'll never wash my feet." And Jesus answered, "Unless I wash you, you have no share with me." Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head." And Jesus said to him, "One who has bathed does not need to wash except for the feet, but is entirely clean. And you are clean, although not all of you." For he knew who was to betray him. For this reason he said, "Not all of you are clean." After he had washed their feet, had put on his robe, and had returned to the table, he said to them, "Do you know what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and you are right, for that is what I am. So if I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also ought to wash one another's feet. For I have set you an example, that you should do as I have done to you. Very truly, I tell you, servants are not greater than their master, nor are messengers greater than the one who sent them. If you know of these things, you are blessed if you do them. Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." The Gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Please be seated. At today's end comes the end of our Lenten journey, and we gather with other Christians around the world to celebrate the 3 days of Jesus' death and resurrection. Maundy, or Holy Thursday, is a name given to the day on which Jesus celebrated the Passover with his disciples. To Israel, Passover was a celebration of their redemption from captivity and their birth as a nation. For Christians, it's the first of the 3 days of solemn remembrance of the events leading up to and immediately following the crucifixion of Jesus. The English word Maundy comes from the Latin mandatum, which means commandment. The liturgy of the 3 days begins on Maundy Thursday with an act of confession and absolution that concludes the season of Lent and prepares everyone for the baptismal renewals of Easter. Our reading from Exodus today tells the Jewish people how to prepare their Passover meal, how to eat it, and how to take the blood of the lamb and put it on the doorposts. God was going to pass through the land of Egypt and strike down every firstborn in the land. But when he sees the blood on the doors of the houses, he will pass over them, and no plague shall destroy them. God told the Israelites to remember this night and to celebrate it as a festival to the Lord. So, in accordance with Jewish tradition, Jesus and the disciples were preparing a meal to celebrate the Passover. The disciples were thinking it would be an ordinary celebration, but this night would be Jesus' Last Supper. This Passover meal started a bit differently than other meals. Jesus took off his robe and he put on a towel and he washed the disciples' feet. Now this was an act that was usually performed by a servant, usually a lowly female servant. Yet Jesus went around the table and washed the feet of the disciples. And the disciples were probably a little shocked at this, and they sat there and allowed Jesus to do this service until Jesus got to Peter. When Jesus approaches Peter to wash his feet, Peter's reply is, "Oh, you'll never wash my feet." But Jesus pushes back against his discomfort because the humiliating role that Jesus has is a role reversal, and it's central to the lesson he is teaching his disciples. When he was done, Jesus explains to the disciples that he has set them an example and that they should do as he has done, to be humble and to be a servant to others. He tells them that he won't be with them much longer and gives them a new commandment, to love one another as he has loved them. Jesus knew what was going to happen. He knew that Jesus would betray him and that Peter would deny him, that he'd be arrested and put to death. And yet, at this last meal, he took the time to wash their feet, even Judas's and Peter's, and then broke bread and drank wine with them. How would you feel if someone asked if they could wash your feet? I was at a Maundy Thursday service once where the pastor picked me to show the congregation what Jesus did. The pastor washed my feet. It was an odd and humbling experience for me to have the leader of the service wash my feet during the service. And my first thought when chosen was, are my feet clean? And then, why me? And then, they're not stinky, are they? And then it was done, and I was asked to wash the foot of another. And I wasn't afraid to take that person's foot and to wash it, no matter where it had been. And I was happy to perform the same service that I had just received. Being a servant does not mean giving up our identities or our personalities or our leadership roles. It's an opportunity to help others, to raise other people up, to let people know they are worthy. Having the opportunity to serve can become part of our personalities. We struggle sometimes to confess that we have dirty feet, that we live in dusty homes and have messy lives. We would like people to see us with our shoes and socks on, neatly wrapped and presented to the world. In private, though, we are painfully aware of our shortcomings. Sometimes we feel like miserable failures, hopeless causes, lost cases. We are none of the above. We are creatures of the earth, living in earthly bodies and inspired with the breath of God. When Jesus knelt at Peter's feet to wash them, it was Peter who was affronted by the seeming impropriety of the situation. But to Jesus, who sees with God's eyes, it was a chance to wash the feet of a loved one. We are children of God, and like any loving parent, God simply wants us to be clean. Through the eyes of love, God looks at us the way we might choose to look at our church, at our lives, at our feet, as things redeemable. Our feet stinky with decay, wrinkled with age, ugly from infection, bruised by labor, signs of our march toward the end. Our feet are not scary to the one who has bound us up into a new body, a body of life, a body we entered into through baptismal waters. God, who is not afraid to draw close to the decaying portions of our world, sees our feet and loves them. And we are given the new commandment to love one another as we are loved. When Jesus washed the disciples' feet, he didn't call out Judas and Peter, even though he knew what was in their hearts. In this gospel, John doesn't focus on the sin. Instead, he focuses on Jesus' love, showing us who he is and, by implication, who we could be for one another. Jesus reveals himself as having loved his own to the end, even becoming a servant, knowing full well the mixed motives of his disciples. By washing the disciples' feet, he shows a sacrificial love, the same type of love he expects from them and from all of his disciples. He shows them a path of service, humility, of bearing each other's burdens. At the cross, he will institute a new Christian family by commanding two persons not related by blood, his mother and his beloved disciple, to care for each other and relate as family because of their bond through him. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, in his Letters and Papers for Prison, commented on this text. Bonhoeffer says, Jesus warns against allowing ourselves to fall into contempt for humanity. Whoever despises another human being will never be able to make anything of him. Nothing of what we despise in another is itself foreign to us. The only fruitful relation to human beings, particularly to the weak among them, is love. That is, the will to enter into and keep community with them. God did not hold human beings in contempt, he became human for their sake. Some people are easy to love. Others are a real challenge. When there are deep disagreements and painful tensions, it can be tempting to write someone off. Yet Jesus demonstrates loving people who were quite willing to tell him that he was wrong, just as Peter does in this passage. He washes each person's feet, no matter what was in their head and in their heart. Forgiving others means wanting what is best for them. It doesn't mean trusting the untrustworthy. But we are called to have an attitude of love for even those we cannot trust, to want what is best for them. Jesus' attitude towards us sinners is always one of forgiving love, and he comes down to our level to give us the best, his very self. Holy Week provides ample opportunities for service for everyone. It's a very busy week. We have extra duties at church, extra bulletins to make, arrangements to make, getting the church ready for visitors, cooking meals. And we have the same thing at home, extra cleaning and cooking. Among all of our chores, we have the opportunity to ponder what it meant for Jesus to enter Jerusalem one last time, knowing what was to come. What it meant to share a meal with your friends one last time. What it meant to watch your friend leave the room for good without saying goodbye, only to show up with your enemies to that familiar place, that garden where you had talked and laughed and cried and hoped. What it meant for Jesus to go on trial, to be flogged and crucified, to look into the eyes of your mother one last time and to ask, "Where are you, God?" Holy Week shouldn't be a week that we endure, but it's an opportunity that we have every year to think about our faith and the path we are on. It's a time to renew our vows to come closer to Christ. A time to remember the new commandment that Jesus gave his disciples, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. Amen.